Welcome to tonight's Saturday Night Special. In Saturday Night Special number 28, I talk with you about overcoming failure.
I'm Joel Hallbaker, teacher, speaker, and author of Inverted Leadership. I challenge you to invest in yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to lead through confident humility is key. And one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my friend, Scott Mader.
Because only through iteration, only through trying things, there's really no such thing in almost any case of an overnight success, of somebody who steps forward and actually wins the very first time they ever go to bat. And honest truth is, sometimes when that actually does happen to someone just through sheer bleeding luck, it ends up being a disaster for them over the long haul.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In tonight's Saturday Night Special, I talk with you about failure. I share why this whole idea that failure should be embraced is really true, but never easy. I talk about some techniques you can use to overcome and move forward after a failure. And I also share with you some of the real reasons why you need to work on this no matter what. One area that a lot of folks need some help with is around the area of productivity. Getting not just more things done, but actually getting the right things done can be really, really tough. I've got a course called Productivity for Your Passion that's designed to help you do this and then to hold you accountable and walk with you so that you can tailor productivity not just to be getting more done, but actually getting the right things done. What's more, we take the approach of looking at your personality and how you actually look at things in the world and tailor the productivity system to your personality. Because the truth is, a lot of the systems that are out there are written really well for somebody with a particular personality type. But if you have a different approach to things, they just don't work. But there's tools and techniques and approaches that you can take that will work for anyone. And we help you do that in Productivity for Your Passion. Check it out over at inspiredstewardship.com/launch. One of the things that you'll hear talked about if you stick around and listen to any of the self-help people or any of the motivational speakers out there is people will talk about failure should be embraced, failing forward. If you don't fail, then you really have no chance of success. That the idea is that only by trying new things, by pushing yourself, by stretching your goals, do you really move forward with success. And if you're doing that, if you're pushing yourself hard, if you're trying to do things that are a little bit beyond your regular everyday ability, a little harder than what you should normally do, then there's no doubt occasionally you're going to fail. And all of that's true. It's 100% true. It's true that it's only through stretching ourselves and pushing our limits that we really grow and succeed. But it's also true that after a failure, either a big one or a small one, you struggle at times. You're going to have challenges. You're going to have times and moments where it really hurts that you failed at something that you really wanted to do. And what we have a tendency to do is sit back on our heels and kind of lick our wounds and decide that we're a failure because we failed, that what we tried to do didn't succeed, and therefore it's just not worth trying again. Basically, most of us have had that experience at one time or another in our life. Sometimes we've had it over and over and over again. where we constantly get pushed back on our heels. We're setting goals that are really big and audacious, and we're failing time after time. And sometimes it even feels like when we set tiny little goals, things that we should be able to do in our sleep, we still fail time after time. And it begins to hurt, especially if you're surrounded by people who act on that failure and actually point it out to you and do things that cause you to internalize that failure more and more and more. And I've seen this happen to people. I've worked with clients over the years, and I've worked with myself over the years as I've noticed that there are times that I internalize that failure. And so I wanted to talk about a few of the techniques that you can use when you've had a failure, big or small, had a setback, big or small, and you're trying to get up and start moving forward again. And the very first thing, the first step that you ought to try and you ought to recognize is just recognizing the fact that you have feelings about it, recognizing the fact that this hurt. This wasn't easy. This wasn't a good thing. This wasn't fun. Don't try to fake it. Don't try to push through with a smile, but acknowledge the fact that you have pain, that this doesn't feel good. Now, don't dwell in it, but acknowledge it. And as part of that, you need to remember that just because you've had a failure, just because you've had a setback, doesn't make you a failure. Remember, we've talked about the 3 Ps before: permanent, pervasive, and personal. This is about recognizing that having a failure does not mean you are a failure. Sure, it may mean that there's something else you need to do. It may mean that there's something else you need to try, but it doesn't mean you are a failure. In fact, if you begin to internalize that, then this is going to make a feedback loop that will cause failures to happen more and more often. The third is try to identify at least one thing that was constructive and that you can learn from this situation. What is one thing that you can take away? Maybe it's a skill that you need to work on and get better at. Maybe it's a piece of information or knowledge that you suddenly have learned about yourself or about other people. And that now you need to internalize that so that you can move forward and not make mistakes like this again. And keep in mind that most successes are born after many, many failures. If you really want to have true success and massive impact, you've got to open yourself up to the fact that you're going to fail. If you look at people like athletes, elite athletes, people like Michael Jordan or Babe Ruth, one of the things you'll notice is that really and truly, when you look at their record of how many shots they make or how many times they've won games, it turns out to not actually be that high of a number. It's just outstanding because it's higher than everyone else's. And usually that comes out of the fact that they were able to internalize and overcome failure after failure after failure. It's also good to identify an accountability partner or someone that you can talk the failure through with. By externalizing it, by bringing it outside of ourselves, you often can identify those learnings and find a way to move forward more effectively, more quickly. Because when we stay within our own heads, when we dwell only within our own view, we don't know what we don't know. And next, identify something that you can do to take action, something you can do to get started again, something you can do to begin moving forward and trying again. Not just try again until you succeed. It may be a different action. It may be something else that you want to try for a little while. It's okay to pivot, but recognize that getting yourself moving and taking another risk will help you not internalize the failure and continue to move forward. And then take action and get it done. Begin working on it. These ways, in all of these techniques, the idea is to come out of the failure and begin moving again in a forward direction. And the truth is, basically, if you're over about the age of 3, you need to be working on this, because What I can guarantee is you are going to have things that are going to go wrong. You're going to have unexpected events. You're going to have plans where it's a sure thing and there's no way this can fail, and yet it does. You're going to push yourself and try to grow, and you're going to fall on your face. It's going to happen. And so you've got to begin to work on ways to overcome failure and actually continue to move forward in a way that lets you grow and is productive and actually causes you to have even more success. Because only through iteration, only through trying things, there's really no such thing in almost any case of an overnight success, of somebody who steps forward and actually wins the very first time they ever go to bat. And honest truth is, sometimes when that actually does happen to someone just through sheer bleeding luck, it ends up being a disaster for them over the long haul. Because over many, many years, they keep expecting everything to become that easy, everything to just fall into place and work perfectly the very first time they try it. And then when that doesn't continue to happen, they're disappointed, they're angry, they feel like they're a failure, and they begin to internalize that and stop trying very quickly. This is one of the reasons why sometimes people that have really struggled in their life turn out to be bigger successes than people that have had everything handed to them. It's not just about the fact that there's opportunity there. It's about the fact that they've internalized the ability to overcome failure and to continue to move forward quickly and effectively and keep trying and push harder and work longer. And through that determination, they succeed where others would fail. So the truth is, if you're human, you need to work to learn to overcome failure. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor. Go over to inspiredstewardship.com/iTunes rate, all one word, iTunes rate. It'll take you through how to leave a rating and review and how to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so that you can get every episode as it comes out in your feed. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.